My name is McKenna Gilbert, and I am a part of the CEO program over at the high school. For one of my projects, I have decided to do an art spotlight on the 8th graders in their 2-point perspective projects. I have had the pleasure of working closely with Mrs. Keever and some of the art students on this video. In this video, you will learn about what a 2-point perspective is, what the students' projects are and what they're using, and just a little bit about their process in the art class itself. Thank you and have a good rest of your day. Go Cougars!
The 8th graders are doing 2-point perspective. Super cool. And it's actually one of those things in the art world that actually shows up in a lot of other professions. So it's really neat for kids to get this experience. So in 2-point perspective, there are 2 vanishing points. So there's one vanishing point. You can always follow from the point. You can always follow back. There'll be a vanishing point over here, and then this student would have a vanishing point over here. You can do the same thing with the tops of their buildings, and where those 2 lines intersect, that's your vanishing point. So the kids are learning how to make something look like it's drawn in correct perspective, which looks super cool, but is not easy at the beginning. So we had that online learning day, and I had the kids, their assignment was just to give me some pictures that were sort of their inspiration. So they all had something like this, and then I made comments on everything, like, love the color here, this theme is fabulous, and then things that I thought would be more personal for them, like, hey, you really like Star Wars, so what about incorporating that, or whatever my thoughts were. So the kids kind of come into the project, at least this year, having a good idea of what they wanted to do. Then I have these worksheets that they work off of that teach them step by step how to do different parts of the process. So depending on what they're doing in 2-point perspective, because like we could do a city like was here, but letters are done the same way, and there's some really neat ones I've seen in the past that students have done the inside of a room. It's very difficult, but looks really neat when they're done. So the kids learned just kind of the basics of how to do all of those things, and then I set them loose after doing all of that instruction and let them start working on their themes, and they have really taken off. Like the themes that they have, I kind of looked at them and I was like, oh, it looks a little difficult to me, but the kids are doing great with it. It's really super cool. So after they get these drawings done, and you can see, here's one that one of the students is working on it, and the reason they make them on, it's the bigger paper, and then this is the actual project, so if you can see the difference between the two. This student has, up here in the margins is where they can test things out, whether they're testing out colors or mediums or just how to draw something. Like, is this going to work? Is this going to look 3-dimensional? And then it's also where they have their definitions and their steps, so that if they happen to be at home and working on it and, oh crud, I forget what my first and second step are, they're there so that the kids are reminded, and it's not on their project. On top of that, their vanishing points a lot of times are on the bigger paper, so they don't have to be on the smaller paper. So you can see she's got her vanishing points here and then over here. I also, on the kids' landing page on Echo, they have several step-by-step YouTube videos for 2-point perspective that are very similar to the way that I teach it, so that they wouldn't get confused. It would be stuff that they would remember. It's not someone doing it a completely different way. So some of them are using those step-by-step instructions. Most of them are using the things that they learned when we started. So when they're done with these, so when they have this part done, which she still has a lot to go, but once they get all of that done, when they finish them, they can finish them with anything. So I would actually encourage them to all do something different. I've offered watercolor pencils, watercolor crayons, watercolor paints, which all 3 act completely different, even though they have watercolor in their name. And markers if they want to make it. I've had students in the past who've wanted to make it look like a blueprint. So they actually drew the whole thing very lightly, and then they go in with a Sharpie pen in blue, and when they're done, it looks like a blueprint. They just erase out where their pencil was, and it looks really cool. So they can finish them however they want, which is one of the things I love about this project, but it's almost a double-edged sword, because for some of the kids, it's, yay, I've got this freedom, but then for others, it's, oh no, I don't know what to pick. So it kind of works both ways. This one up here, so these are all 2-point perspective examples. This is actually one that is a 3-point example. I had a student a few years ago that wanted to try 3-point perspective, and I myself had never done it. So I said, okay, let's do this together. I'm going to do the project with you so that I know what we're doing. And it was really fun. I liked it. It wasn't anything I had done before. Finished in colored pencil. The rest of these are all done in watercolor and Sharpie.
Hi, my name is Sam Haug. I'm in 8th grade, and right now in art class we are working on a two-point perspective drawing. I'm going to be doing a futuristic city in space. The mediums I'm going to be using are most likely watercolor and colored pencil. I really like this drawing because I like to be exact and perfect my drawings, and I like it better than just regular drawing. So
I'm Olivia Bates in 8th grade, and the project I'm focusing on is a 2D perspective of different shapes. So the first steps we learned were different. Went through a packet of how to get there. We started with basic shapes and then went to houses and the inside of a room. Then from there we started letters. And from letters we just started in more detail. Then Mrs. Keeper let us off on our own. So my final project would be different shapes of rectangles or squares, and I'm going to color them in all different mediums of paint, watercolor, colored pencil, and pastels.